Here is the criteria for your final assignment. I think I'll start just by playing the movie and going through it in runtime, and then I'll come back to the file here. So I'm just going to click on the test movie button here and launch this inside my browser. And what we have here, you saw that initial animation. So you will begin, I'll call this on the first frame, have a movie clip that will have your name with all the letters animated flying in and resting in the center of the screen. Up here, you will create an interactive navigational menu where when you roll over the word, it triggers the submenu, and have it animated coming in, and when you roll away, have it animated going out the same way it came in. Doesn't necessarily have to look exactly like mine, but it does need to be animated when it comes to its resting spot, and when you roll away, it goes back the same way it came in. Now, with respect to the submenu items, we have 3 different buttons that will link to different keyframes on the timeline, which will be indicated with a label name, a frame label. So the first one is the nested animation. And what we have here is a 2-level deep nested animation, and I want you to create a very similar kind of animation element with 2 moving components with a start and stop button for each. So I'll stop the yellow, and you can see that the green is still rotating. You're going to have to move your center points to create the axis of rotation, and this red button here stops the green. This will start the green, this will start the yellow. They do work independently of each other, and one is nested inside of the other as well. The green is inside of the yellow. So that will be the first page, if you want to call it a page, and do label it nested animation. And then I'll go back to my main menu here, and we'll go to the song bar, which does have a song playing. I want you to include a stop button, which will stop the sound and stop the animation, and then a replay button that will return it back to the beginning and play it all over again. Okay, so a stop and a replay button and an animated progress bar that includes the music and just a label. You don't have to use this sound, but use one that's, I would say, keep it under 30 seconds. Okay, and again labeled at the top. Switch over to the next major keyframe called rig character. Here you will provide a 10-second animation of a character. Okay, you will need to rig it up and animate it over 10 seconds. Provide your own backdrop, your own background as well. And the big thing about this is when I go to another element, I want the sound to stop. Okay, so if I'm coming from the rig character, it should stop whenever I depart, even if I go to the song bar. Now the same thing with the song bar. If I leave that page, that sound should stop as well. Okay, so there we have it. Oh yes, of course, the menu button itself will bring you back to that home page where you have your animated name. Okay, so it's really a 4-button menu. When we roll away, the sub menu gets hidden. When we mouse over it, it animates out and rests available to be clicked. All right, so these are all buttons here. This is all inside of a movie clip, of course. Okay, and when we roll over it, it comes out. When you roll away, it disappears. All right, so if I go back to the home page, we have our animated name. So let's go back to the file. Just going to go back to Adobe Animate here and call up my timeline. So basic setup, let me go through the layers. I'll just rename this layer actually. I'll call it Content. Okay, and this layer I'll call Labels. And you can see here that I have 4 main keyframes. It could have gone to frame 4, but I like to spread my timeline out to be able to read my frame labels. So we have 4 sets of keyframes, if you will, frame 0, 10, 20, and 30. That is for each to host each movie clip. So in this one, if I click on here, It's part of a, I'll just shrink my view down here, part of a movie clip. And if I go into that movie clip, it is the animation of the letters. All right, so you're going to have to type in your name. You're going to have to break apart the letters using a break apart and then convert each letter to a symbol, and then you can animate them. All right, 2 keyframes, just like that. So let me come back up to scene 1. So that's again contained in a movie clip, and that's pretty well the protocol for each of the 4 keyframes. So let me move my playhead over to frame 10, which is labeled on the frame labels as PG01, page 1. Again, a movie clip on the timeline in my content layer. If I double click that movie clip, you can see that I've got the animation there in a nested movie clip, and it also has further nesting and all 4 buttons on a layer called buttons. Okay. Let me go back to scene 1 here and go over to page 2. I'm just going to zoom up on this a bit. Fit in window. And here again, a movie clip, right? I'm just going to double click it here. And inside of there, you can see that I have the bottom layer, which is the animated fill here to create the progress bar. And the stroke is just a static outline, and then a separate layer for the song. Now with the song, I'm actually starting it on frame 2. And I've got a little frame label in frame 1. It's keyframe separately called start. Because when I create the replay button, I want to click it to say go to and play frame label start. All right. So I just used that same layer, and starting it on frame 2 is a pretty good idea for the song to trigger it. Okay. Then I have a layer for the 2 buttons and the button labels below here. And then my actions up here on the top layer. Okay. And let's just get out of that one. And then the final keyframe is the animated armature. Now, that is in a movie clip, so I'm going to go into the movie clip. With respect to the armature, I actually have that in a movie clip as well. Not necessary, I don't think. You could just do the animation here. But if I go into there, you can see that I have the armature, and I'm running 10 seconds worth of animation. All right, this was based on the music, so try to sync it up and try to make it relevant, have the moves make sense with respect to the music. If you can actually do, if you want to do like a talking bit as well, I'll leave that out there for you if again makes sense, and it looks pretty cool. But likely music is the better way to go on this. So let me just go back up a level here, and this is the movie clip again called Park, and you can see I have my audio in a separate track over here. The armature, it is nested, but it is a fully boned armature. You're going to have to make sure you have your pivot points set up. You can use the free transform tool to move those around. You can use this robot armature if you like, which I've provided it previously, or you can use your own from scratch or derived from somewhere else. But I do want you to have the main body parts, which is the head, the neck, the chest, the waist, upper lower legs and feet, upper and lower arms and hands. Okay. I also want you to provide a background set, if you will, and that can go in a separate layer that you see here. If I hide that, there's the background, the music, and the armature. Okay, and give me 10 seconds worth of fun inside of that particular movie clip. And that is the 4th and final keyframe. So there's kind of like 5 main elements for you to do, right? The keyframed elements inside of each of these, including on the home page where you have the animated name. And the 5th main element, of course, would be your main menu, which is persistent, 1 keyframe to last the whole duration of the title. And inside of there, you can see the typical way that we've done it. You've done this before. You can leverage your previous file if that makes sense to you. But we do want to have an animated menu as our navigation. Okay. Now, with respect to the sound, let me just go back again. I'll actually play this. I do want to make sure that you stop the sound when leaving that particular page. I'm thinking primarily of the rigged animation as well as the song. Okay, so if I'm on the rigged character, when I leave that, that music should stop. When I leave the song, that music should stop as well. So even if I'm going from the song to the character. The song stops, the character begins. Okay, so you just need to basically use that create.js dot capital S sound dot stop empty brackets semicolon. Put that in the code when clicking on one of the other buttons, and that will handle the sound. Okay, and that is your final assignment. When that is completed, hand that into Canvas, and there we go.